The year was 1415, and the kingdom of Alden stood on the brink of collapse. The enemy had swept across the land, leaving castles smoldering and villages abandoned. Only one bastion remained, Ironhold, a fortress carved into the mountains, its gray walls towering over the valley below. Within its walls, Sir Edric, a grizzled knight with a weathered face and piercing gray eyes, prepared for the inevitable. Ironhold was outnumbered 10 to 1, its supplies dwindling, its defenders exhausted. But surrender was not an option. The enemy, the ruthless Black Helm army, showed no mercy to those who yielded. In the dim light of the great hall, Edric addressed his soldiers. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of their predicament. "We stand at the edge of despair, but it is in such moments that true courage is forged. The enemy believes we are broken. Let us show them the strength of Ironhold." The soldiers, farmers turned fighters, let out a ragged cheer. Among them was Elena, a young archer who had lost her family to the Black Helms. Her hands trembled as she strung her bow, but her eyes burned with determination. Next to her stood Gareth, a blacksmith turned swordsman, his massive frame a pillar of strength for those around him. The enemy siege engines loomed in the valley, catapults and battering rams poised to strike. Edric climbed the walls, gazing out at the sea of enemy banners. He turned to Elena and Gareth. "We cannot outlast them," he said quietly, "but we can make them pay for every inch." At dawn, the attack began. The Black Helm catapults hurled flaming projectiles, their impacts shaking the very foundations of Ironhold. Edric's soldiers manned the walls, loosing arrows and dropping stones on the advancing troops. Elena's arrows flew true, finding their marks even in the chaos. "Hold the gates," Edric shouted as the enemy battering ram began its relentless assault. Gareth led a small team to reinforce the gate, his hammer smashing down on any foe who climbed too high. Hours turned into a grueling day. The defenders fought with a ferocity born of desperation, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. By nightfall, the outer wall was breached, and the defenders retreated to the keep. Inside the keep, the mood was grim. Edric gathered his commanders, their faces pale with exhaustion. "We cannot withstand another assault," one of them said. Edric nodded. "Then we do not wait for it." The plan was simple but dangerous. Under cover of darkness, a small team would sneak into the enemy camp and destroy their siege engines. It was a suicide mission, but without it, the fortress would fall. "I'll go," Elena said, stepping forward. Gareth placed a hand on her shoulder. "Not alone," he said. "I'll go too." Edric looked at them, pride and sorrow in his eyes. "You are braver than I could ever ask for," he said. That night, Elena, Gareth, and a handful of others slipped out through a hidden passage. Moving like shadows, they reached the enemy camp. The siege engines loomed above them, monstrous in the flickering torchlight. Elena drew her bow, her heart pounding as she shot a flaming arrow into the nearest catapult. It erupted in flames, drawing shouts of alarm from the enemy soldiers. Gareth swung his hammer, shattering the wheels of a battering ram. Chaos erupted in the camp as the defenders unleashed their fury. The destruction bought precious time, but the cost was high. Gareth fell, overwhelmed by enemy soldiers as he held them back to give Elena a chance to escape. Tears streamed down her face as she returned to Ironhold, the sound of his final roar echoing in her ears. The dawn revealed a battered but defiant Ironhold. The enemy, demoralized and weakened, hesitated to launch another assault. Reinforcements from the capital arrived that afternoon, driving the Black Helms into retreat. Edric stood atop the walls, watching the enemy banners disappear into the distance. He turned to Elena, who clutched Gareth's hammer. "He gave everything for this," she said, her voice trembling. "And because of him," Edric replied, "Ironhold still stands." The Siege of Ironhold became a legend, a tale of courage and sacrifice passed down fortress bore the scars of battle. Its defenders proved that even in the darkest times, hope and valor can shine brighter than any siege fire.